the Ben Shapiros of the world.
Yeah.
These people who don't necessarily have the intellect to have honest discussions, but but yet they're able to become millionaires because they're actually just circulating and promulgating this fear.
There are many, many confounds when it comes to these particular issues. And unless you remove the statistical confounds, you end up with trying to blame vague, shadowy figures like implicit bias, which are innately, insanely difficult, if not impossible, to measure.
I don't know what he just said.
Prepare for a heated debate that was broadcast live on television, one that was so intense that it set the stage on fire with strong arguments and scathing takedowns. It was none other than the contenders and Bill Maher's show on stage. Bakari Sellers of CNN will face off against the witty Ben Shapiro and the always honest Bill Maher. The subject is one that consistently arouses American emotions, racial tensions, and unconscious prejudice. What began as a routine segment swiftly descended into a heated argument as Sellers, fiercely defending his position, charged Shapiro with spreading fear-based stories in order to make money. He questioned Shapiro's intellectual integrity, practically challenging him to reply, which he did, calmly and calculatingly dissecting the Sellers' assertions. Shapiro's ability to reason was evident as he painstakingly addressed the complexities of racial discussions, highlighting statistical irregularities, and casting doubt on the use of the nearly incalculable notion of implicit bias. However, it didn't stop there. Bill Maher joined the debate, emphasizing how the media contributes to division. Indeed, it was an event that you had to witness to believe. When Shapiro and Maher exposed the manipulations and double standards present in popular narratives, the argument reached a fever pitch. Pause for a moment. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you appreciate incisive observations and bold perspectives. Have you just signed up? Fantastic. Now, let's return to the video. Okay, shall we dive straight into this explosive debate? What specifically transpired between Bill Maher, Ben Shapiro, and Bakari Sellers? The audience, including us viewers, were riveted by the exciting exchange. Bakari Sellers' decision to grasp the opportunity was the beginning of it all. Shapiro versus Sellers. Sellers tried to discredit Shapiro's analysis of racial issues at the start of the conversation. Sellers now showed no restraint. He leveled a flurry of charges directly at Shapiro, claiming that he was only using fear-mongering to his advantage. Sellers may have drawn lines a little too thickly when he accused Shapiro and those around him of not having the intelligence to engage in sincere, honest conversation. However, this is where the interesting part began. Shapiro, who is renowned for his quick rebuttals and keen intellect, made sure that these accusations were not allowed to go unanswered. Oh no. He stepped up, inhaled deeply, and used something that we all need more of to cut through the confusion. Logic and facts. With composure, he described how many racial discussions are entangled with various statistical confounds. This effectively obfuscates any precise comprehension. As Shapiro outlined his arguments, he drew attention to the inherent problems with attributing real-world problems to abstract, difficult-to-measure concepts like implicit bias. Sellers was fired with a straightforward dismissal. He said something that seemed to awkwardly fit with his arguments, but I'm not sure what it was. Slow unraveling. Ever the strategist, Shapiro persisted, analyzing Sellers' arguments and making comparisons. Sellers draws inspiration from the past, but he had no intention of giving up. By mentioning his father's experience during the tragic and violent Orangeburg massacre, which took place during the civil rights era, he transitioned to a more emotional appeal.
All you have to do is ask my father, who literally was shot in the Orangeburg massacre, right? Who helped found SNCC, who marched with Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King, and the list goes on and on and on. And he will tell you today that he feels like this country's at 1954. And so if you want to talk about somebody...
But that doesn't mean it is. Well, you said he feels that way. That's ridiculous. It is. Come on.
I think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be.
I have to object to that.
But you just said
I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
I'm not too close to something. I am that.
I know.
And so, but what I am saying though is for you to discount my father's experience and say that,
I'm not discounting it,
and to say it was silly.
I'm not.
No, he was shot.
No,
Were you shot?
No, but he's still alive. Like he's right here. Like
right, but the idea that if I were to say to you as a Jew that the experience of Jews in the United States today is worse than the experience of Jews in Europe in 1939, I would not be stating accurately.
Correct.
It's not true.
That's
and it's also not true to say that the experience of black people in America in 2024 is worse on a general level than the experience of black men in 1954 in Alabama. That's just crazy.
But I mean, I think
Vendors made an effort to compare those terrifying times to modern-day America. He asserted that racial tensions in the nation today were similar to those of 1954, essentially portraying the present era as being just as oppressive. It was quite a claim, was it not? It was an opportunity for Shapiro to take advantage of. One more thing to make clear.
The 4th of July weekend, there's 109 people in Chicago who were shot, 19 fatally. That's a lot over a weekend.
Yeah.
And the race of the victims will not be reported. Is that helpful? And why is that? Why don't they report that? Let's have some real talk here.
And people want to make it a blue city thing. But if you look at the violent culture or the number of deaths or the rate of crime and violent crime in states like Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, Georgia, we have a problem. And we're just not doing a good enough job. But we also don't necessarily have the resources poured into our community to help lift those people up. I hate when people say, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and we don't have no damn boots.
I mean, I'll disagree with the last aspect only to the extent that I do believe that everybody in the United States has the capacity to get married, father kids, and stay with the family that they created.
Well, Donald Trump didn't.
I mean, and I disagree with that. And I disagree with that. It does, by the way, I should know, does not undercut the point at all. And you, I think, agree with me.
Well, I mean, I hear you. But I think where I would probably disagree with both of you guys is that we've never really evaluated the systems that we have in this country. I mean, most times when we talk about racism.
I just asked the question.
No. I'm bringing us together. I'm bringing us together.
If we're talking about single motherhood, for example, obviously the rate of single motherhood in the black community has increased from 20.
Drawing from the history of his own culture. To compare today's America with such a dark and oppressive period is not only an exaggeration, but it's almost an insult to the immense progress that has been made over decades, he said in response to the claim. He came up with a powerful analogy, likening this to claiming that the situation for Jews in America today is worse than it was in 1939 in Europe. This argument, which was supported by facts, demonstrated how ignoring change undercuts the progress that humanity has made. The interjection of Maher. Correct. All right, Bill Maher took over at this point, and he didn't hold back. He supported Shapiro's position, but he went one step further. You know, challenging the way events are reported in the media and the way facts are occasionally glossed over. Maher made the point that selective reporting on events could distort the facts and cause needless divisions. He brought up the statistics on violent crimes in Chicago, a persistent problem that is frequently covered selectively based on the victim's race, which feeds the flames of false information. Maher had not finished. He exposed a crucial aspect of how frequently the media fabricates stories by omitting important details and modifying facts to support a particular narrative. This isn't helpful, he said. It is harmful because it presents a partial and frequently skewed picture of reality. Maher emphasized the value of examining the facts objectively, free from the skewed lenses of predetermined narratives that are constantly being discussed. Sellers tried to make another turn, even though they were forced into a corner. He introduced the topic of systemic problems and resource allocation, arguing that communities do not receive the support they require, which ultimately results in the current issues. Once more, though, Shapiro was ready. He quickly made the point that, although important, systemic problems cannot be used as the only excuse for societal problems. He emphasized the significance of taking into account cultural elements, particularly the prevalence of single motherhood, community dynamics, and the crucial roles they play in determining futures. Then, Maher asked a question that seemed to linger in the air. Why do the media choose to ignore facts that don't fit the popular, frequently political narrative? It was a clear indication of how delicate media coverage has gotten to the point where confronting harsh realities feels like treading carefully. The value of open communication. One thing emerged from all of this back and forth. This was more than a racial debate. It mirrored the larger American conversation. There was a clear distinction between using emotive language and supporting assertions with facts. Although powerful, Sellers' emotional appeals faltered in the face of Shapiro's factual accuracy and Maher's unvarnished candor. Ultimately, Shapiro and Maher revealed how the media, in race baiting, stifled real dialogues by spreading selective outrage. Despite being legitimate in and of themselves, Sellers' attempts to employ emotional narratives were unable to withstand the evidence that was stacked against presumptive declarations. You know, it takes more than just lighthearted banter or emotional outbursts to get to the core of actual problems. It requires sorting through layers, facing hard realities, and having meaningful, informed conversations that aren't just loud until the discussions are as much about solutions as they are about problems. Real change is still unattainable. It's your turn now. How do you feel about this heated discussion? Do you believe that Shapiro and Maher's evaluations were reasonable? Or were Sellers correct to draw attention to these experiences' emotional components? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. We would love to know your thoughts.